So Joe Biden held a press conference associated with the NATO summit, which he also spoke at. Um, and the goal of his campaign at this point, of course, is damage control. Is trying to um, persuade voters and donors and pretty much anyone who can help him win that he is fit and capable of being president for another 4 years. He's not doing a great job of that, to be honest. This is from the Associated Press. Key takeaways from Biden's news conference: insistence on staying in the race and flub names. Joe Biden faced a test Thursday that he had avoided so far this year, a solo news conference with questions from the White House press corps. The news conference was meant to reassure a disheartened group of Democratic lawmakers, allies, and persuadable voters in this year's election that Biden still has the strength and stamina to be president. Biden has tried to defend his feeble and tongue-tied performance in the June 27th debate against Republican Donald Trump as an outlier, rather than evidence that at 81 he lacks the vigor and commanding presence the public expects from the commander-in-chief. He made at least two notable flubs, referring at an event beforehand to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin, and then calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump when asked about her by a reporter. But he also gave detailed responses about his work to preserve NATO and his plan for a second term, and he insisted that he's not leaving the race, even as a growing number of Democratic lawmakers ask him to step aside. It's a delicate dance between the president and vice president, with many Democrats openly pining for Harris to replace Biden on the ticket. Biden did acknowledge that tensions, but only brought up Harris in response to pointed questions about whether he believes she has the capacity to replace him. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president, Biden said, citing Harris's resume from prosecutor to the U.S. Senate. But in response to a later question, he acknowledged he'd moved on from his 2020 campaign promise to be a bridge to a new generation of Democrats. What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited, he said, without a word about his vice president. Repeatedly, he said, "I've got a job to finish." So, I mean, people, I guess, just have to make up their own mind as to whether Biden should step aside or not. I mean, he's not helping. He's continually not helping his image, unfortunately, with just how often he gets confused and how often he has trouble articulating himself. And it doesn't help that, clearly he is sensitive about this topic and gets defensive, and his campaign gets defensive. And so, I mean, public perception of it isn't really good. Right, but then you get into the question about policy, and based on policy, who would you rather have be in office for 4 years? And that's sort of where it comes down from my perspective. I mean, we should vote for whoever is the Democratic candidate ultimately, especially if you're in a swing state. But I guess we just have to see if anything changes in the next couple of weeks. I mean, things just don't seem to be moving. I mean, despite some Democrats saying he should step down, there's also plenty of other Democrats saying, no, we're sticking by him. We're sticking by him right now, including Bernie, AOC, and others. And again, nothing seems to be changing. I mean, I know there's talk about getting rid of him, talk of replacing him with Harris and so forth, but there doesn't seem to be action to those words. And then again, Biden is just so adamant that he's not leaving and that he has a job to do. Now, the fact that he's given up trying to be a bridge to younger Democrats, I think, is foolish. I think that's politically a bad move. So that's the thing about Joe Biden, or his strength, is that he's been more progressive than previous presidents. Not that his strength hasn't been the opposite. So if he's trying to veer in that direction, well, then I do fear even more for his electability. But again, I mean, we'll see. And purely based on policy, I mean, I don't think it's a contest. Purely based on policy, Biden, I'd vote for Biden over Trump 100 times. And I mean, we need to sort of, in the long run, we need to address the fact that we live in a gerontocracy. I mean, we need to address the fact that so many of these people in office are super, super old and they're dying in office. And those people aren't going to be the most responsive to young people's concerns, for example. So we need to address that in order to, make sure that we maintain some semblance of a democracy. But at this time, it's like, is Biden really going to step down at this point? Are they really going to replace him? Is there going to be a, coup behind the scenes or something? Like, I don't know. It just, a lot of it seems like idle talk. And I mean, this comes from a person who admitted that she was wrong to downplay the Biden age concern. So I'm not downplaying that concern. But again, nothing seems to be happening. And at that point, then I just have to say, well, okay, then I'm going to stick with Biden as I've been, and go from there.